the far-flung reaches of the YouTube galaxy. It's the Outer Rim! How's it going, everybody? Welcome! We're trying not to laugh at ourselves at the intro. We keep doing that every time. And now I'm going to call it out again, so we really need to move on with it. Hey, I'm Darrin.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And we got kind of a big discussion to dive in today. This is something that's kind of been on my mind for a while, and I don't know. I guess it really kind of started out with the letter that Bill Gates dropped a few weeks ago now, that kind of got the whole climate crisis world afluttered. As I guess the reception of that is that he was saying that the climate crisis is over, or that there's nothing that we can do, and we just got to focus on quality of life, which was, I guess, interpreted as some sort of like giving up, or that the whole climate change argument was faked. At least, again, on the feeds and social media that I sort of ran into. And that kind of, I don't know, that kind of bothered me. One is, I think it's just a dumb capitulation for no reason at all. But second, I never understood what this whole thing with Bill Gates was, that he was like this leader in climate change or this big giant humanitarian. Because look, I remember the 90s, early 2000s Microsoft, okay, when Bill Gates was like the evil emperor of software, whose company was crushing any potential competitors, buying up, suing people into oblivion if they felt that they crossed or potentially threatened its business at all, with new technologies and new developments, usually going after ridiculous like patent issues and stuff like that. Just horrific. And I guess that just really kind of ended with, I guess, when the iPod and then the iPhone came out, and then of course the internet afterwards. Then it wasn't so much operating systems, it was about your browser. And to me, he's just always been trying to clean up his legacy, put a nice bright shine on what would have been just sort of an evil corporate dictator. But I mean, what do you remember from Bill Gates? I mean, has that ever, his whole philanthropic approach?
I really didn't pay a lot of attention to these nerds, and I'm a nerd too. But it was just like, I wasn't into PCs or
Right.
computer culture, so I didn't really know anything that other than he was a rich nerd, and a really rich nerd, and that he was like Steve Jobs type of tech person, and that a lot of the things that we have were developed under these people's in their orbit. And so I didn't really know anything about the evil empire of it or any of that. Just that I noticed that as he got older, he started to like talk more and more about philanthropic stuff and giving people advice on things. And now you're telling me that he's written a letter. I didn't hear about this letter, so
okay.
This letter about suddenly sounding like, oh well, it's too late, so fuck it. I mean, this comes from a guy who probably can go somewhere and be underground for the rest of his natural life and freeze himself and who knows what.
Well, and that's, I mean, and to me, that's the thing that was kind of driving this whole line of thinking that I was bringing into this discussion here today, is how much people really at the top are in very real circumstances risking all of our lives for a few dollars right now.
Well, also to build it's like scamming people to help you get away from an apocalypse that you know what I mean? Like, I think about Fallout. I think about the show Fallout, where Vault-Tec basically creates the situation.
Right.
Like they know it's coming, and so we're the workforce. It's like we're gonna use the workforce to get us where we need to go, and then when everything goes bad, sorry, you guys are on the outside of Noah's Ark at this point. Like you're just not enough people. Sorry, like we're fine. It's almost like literally that's what I'm saying is that we're helping them protect themselves and insulate themselves while the rest of us are doomed.
Right. Because, I mean, those with money, power, access, are going to always be fine.
The
They will
gods and
find,
clods thing.
yeah, well, they'll find the one area that's safe and clean and so on. They can buy up all the property. They can do, they could build their bunkers because they're going to be fine. And the sad thing is like so often, and we have found historically, and we are finding right now, historically with the climate and right now with AI, is that they know the dangers that we are facing. And they will fight tooth and nail to deny those realities exist, to basically gaslight the rest of us, to fueling their empires, their pursuits, at the risk of the futures of all of the rest of us.
Well, we're just numbers. We're
Yeah.
just data. So all we really are is, I can imagine there being some conversations of, they'll never know the noble sacrifice that how we basically, they let us sacrifice ourselves for their new future. We can't help them. They can't, we've whipped them into so many different frenzies about hating each other, and there's just so much built in that we can't, they don't see us being able to ever, do anything about any of this stuff because of what they've created in us. So they're just going to use us for whatever they can until it's done. And they'll always be their group of, quads to help them out. There's always somebody willing to take a paycheck, to be whatever, just to survive. I mean,
Well, and that's it. And it's, I mean, starting with like the climate ideas. And I know whatever the stupid arguments are right now about the climate change being over and it's all fake and it's a giant hoax and whatever. And look, I'll be honest, it's hard to notice, the changes on a planet. Okay. The first Earth Day was back in 1970, and that would come and gone before I was even born. Growing up, the most we knew about the worried about the environment was iron-eyed coyotes is the Native American crying at the trash in the river. Of course, iron-eyed coyote ended up being Sicilian, but that, of course, is just the way that America works in so many ways.
yep.
Or we had Woodsy the owl, give a hoot, don't pollute. Because for us, the concern was, don't throw your trash out the window. The weather seemed fine to me. I didn't notice any big changes.
Weather was weather. It was winters were bad, summers were wonderful, springs were, everything. It rained, but it brought all the flowers. Everything happened in its correct form.
Well, yeah, and things seem to be just not really much different than it was before. Now, in 1990, we had a big resurgence for Earth Day. I was in high school at the time. And look, as a young teenager, I'm like, yeah, this seems a little much. You're worried about the environment. We're going to change all these things. But on the other hand, we had this kind of worrisome growing hole in the ozone layer that was actually starting to threaten cancer rates and make some impacts. Humpback whales were disappearing. Now, admittedly, that was a lot from overfishing, from whaling and stuff, but that had to be definitely our fault, right? So, I don't know. We thought we could make a change. We put it out there. And for a while, we kind of did. I mean, the same year, 1990, the Montreal Protocol, which was established a few years earlier to limit chlorofluorocarbons, which was causing the hole in the ozone layer, was expanded out to a global ban, phase out by 2000. And honestly, outside of companies having to find a new gas to run their hairspray, we didn't really notice much. And that hole started shrinking. We put whales on the endangered species list. There was a giant anti-whaling push throughout the world. And hey, humpbacks started to come back. Countries started doing meetings to talk about climate emissions and reducing greenhouse gases. We recycled. So we believed we could make a difference. And so let me tell you, for those doubting changes in the atmosphere, doubting shifts in climate, as somebody with now a half century of memories and experience, let me tell you, shit is so much worse than was back then. Okay, we have like 100-year storms all the time. Every year is hotter than the last. The last 10 years, each have been hotter than the one before it. They have been the hottest on record over and over and over again. Last year in 2024 was the first year that we burst over the 1.6 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. In 1990, it was like 0.5 degrees. Not much change there. Now a giant change. 2025, it's going to be even hot. Was even hotter than last year when it all comes down. And when we talk about temperatures, because everyone's like, oh, it's cold. I thought it's global warming. When you think about temperatures, the raise in greenhouse gases, what we're talking about is putting energy into a system. With more greenhouse gases, it can hold more heat. That heat is more energy that drives more systems in the environment. That means storms are bigger. You get more hurricanes. You get more tornadoes. Floods are more intense. The jet stream starts to become more chaotic. You get larger shifts, which means suddenly you're getting frost, cold snaps snapping down like into the lower US states that weren't happening before. This is all energy put into the system. That means glaciers are melting. That means sea levels are rising. Not by a lot now, maybe a few millimeters a year. But if some of the larger glaciers break, one in Greenland or down in Antarctica, that could raise sea level meters. I mean, it's so hard for us to really fathom the amount of change that we can affect into a system. But the reality is it's documented. We've done it. And if you want to be in the belief system that this is just cycles that Earth goes through, there's always hot times and cold times and ice ages and hot periods and so on. Fine. There's documented fact that we've made contributions, but let me tell you, with so many of us on here, we're definitely driving that system, even if it's already existing. And since the dangers are to our lives, perhaps it would be in our interest, even if we're not causing it, to do what we can to slow it down or reverse it as much as possible.
That would mean, it's people just can't, like, there are places in, like, even if we, I don't know, this isn't probably helpful. We did so much damage in like 100 years.
Oh yeah.
Like from industrial like progression. And there's places still all over the world that are just getting some of these things that were our old hat to us, but they are finally, now they're contributing, a lot of places that are third world that finally get industrialized just keep making it worse. Like, like maybe their atmosphere was fine, but now it's not. It's towards the almighty dollar, right?
Yeah.
There's like progress. Like we are progressive thinking people, and yet progress doesn't. It also means to everyone that this is just how it is. That we have like, oh, climate change. Again, I think people just don't want to believe it. It's so weird how they can believe in magical space wizards, but they can't see what's right in front of their faces. That everybody that's our age that still go, no, it's not happening. Like, no, I heard this and I heard that, but it's just like like you said, every year it gets hotter and hotter. We stopped having real snows, like when I call real snows,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and it still snows like crazy some places, so you don't notice
Right.
all the time. But like here in Illinois, it used to be classic winter time throughout my childhood, throughout like the 90s for the most part. Then as we got around the 2000 area, that's when it just suddenly stopped. All of a sudden, we were still getting some snow, but it just started getting less and less every year. It would stay cold. It would stay warmer later. It would get cold and really cold, but it would never really snow that much to the point where there's always is it going to be a white Christmas? It used to be there was never any doubt.
Sure.
Now it's like, no. And if it does, it snows and then it melts the next day. It snowed here It was warm and warm and warm, and it's October and it's still warm.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it snows. It drops in temp and snows and then disappears. And then it was 60, 60, 60 again.
Right.
And now it's back to being cold again. You're telling me that's normal? That's just a cycle. No, it's not, man. Like everybody is so like the way that people talk about it around here, man. It's just like how people can't be happy about anything. It's like it's cold, but there's no snow. So be happy. But you also have to realize this isn't normal, so don't be happy. Like we should be up to our necks in snow. We should be out there shoveling.
Right.
But we're not.
And it's hard to tell, especially when you grow up, if you're growing up post 2000, well,
They
you
treat it
don't
like
know
this is
that.
progress.
Yeah.
Like this is the actual progress. This is what we always wanted. It's like Florida up here now. We don't have to relocate. Pretty soon it's not going to be Florida though. It's going to be, the desert.
Well, that's it. It's shifts in when we get into climate, we're talking about kind of like, like troughs of stability, where temperatures can change a little bit, atmospheric conditions can change a little bit, but there's enough systems that are kind of working to put it back in balance that nothing ever really goes out. The problem that we've been running with is because it's been going on for so long is that we've overridden a lot of these stabilizing factors where stuff is like can be pushed over a hill and then all of a sudden it's down like a roller coaster. One of the biggest that's been concerned about and has talked in, I think, probably a few sci-fi movies is the North Atlantic Current, which is an important stabilization between cold, salty water and warm water from the Gulf. And they come up and then they meet and the water drops in temperature and salinity changes. And that's what allows this whole North Atlantic Current, which not only keeps Northern Europe and England and stuff temperate when they would be in much more colder temperatures otherwise. But it runs whole the Northern Hemisphere climate system. It's a whole system for moving food and krill and nutrients throughout the ocean. If that shuts down, I mean, we couldn't even imagine. And we could probably imagine, but there would all be horrible imaginings of the consequences that would happen. How that would drastically alter weather in the Northern Hemisphere. And there's signs that may be happening. Yeah. The Arctic is like free of ice regularly during summers now. Or there's at least free passages. I think they fear that it can be completely free just within the next 5 years. And I mean, look, yeah, this is a bad situation. The frustrating thing about this is, like I said, Earth Day was in 1970, 55 years ago, where they were talking about concerns about changes in the environment. And certainly going through growing up in the 80s when this was all coming to a fore, it was all talk of, we don't have the science, we need to look at things, we need to examine it, we need to do some stuff, be sure. And then we find out later that oil companies have had files since the 60s talking about the concerns of climate change and the fact that burning oil and fossil fuels are major contributors. The US military for years paid attention to climate change because it affects military readiness. And they don't need to sugarcoat anything. So the frustrating thing is, like, again, we tried for a couple of years, and look, renewable solar, that was new. We're still working on that. There was nuclear, but look, okay, we had a couple of accidents. Some bad stuff. We got a little scared. And maybe we were thinking we were trying to be responsible. Let's figure out how to do this safe. Figure out a place to put our waste. The big nuclear waste disposal site that's supposed to be in Nevada for the past decades, it still hasn't officially opened as far as I know. We kicked the can down the road. It was big for a while, and they pushed it aside because from a business standpoint, it was more profitable to stick with what we had. Which always confused me because we always talk about the power of innovation. You know, Americans are innovators, breakthrough on science. We're still generating electricity by boiling water for the most part, even with a nuclear plant. Renewables are doing great and amazing stuff, and they are getting cheaper, and we're getting more availability for it. So why would you take money away from that? Why pull grants and funding away from power systems that don't cost anything outside of their initial build to run? They require no actual fuel because it's from the sun or from wind, especially in a time when we need more power because AI is the new thing that is on the horizon, and that's going to be chewing up tons of power. Why would you shut down power systems that provide clean, free-ish energy to replace them? And yeah, okay, maybe it's good only during the day. Fine. That's when most people use energy. You can still use those as primaries and other sources for backup until afterwards. But we're instead opening up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for drilling. We're deforesting. We're opening up a national forest for logging. And like you said, Rob, we can't blame other countries for not wanting to get on top of the industrial craze. America made its money. They want to get into the system.
Yep. It's like we're rushing to the end. Like we're just, it's just the disease of capitalism and profit over everything. They have the people that crunch these numbers that tell them all the things and all the ways to predict things. And it's just, again, it's all about just saving themselves and having just, accepting that we're all going to be, a majority of us will perish along the way. We're going to, and the thing is like, this isn't going to affect us as much as it's going to affect the generations coming.
Yeah.
Like we're just the guy with the sign that says, the end is coming.
Sorry, I couldn't do anything about it.
Here's my receipts. So, and how many times throughout history have people banged the drum on something that's about to happen and nobody wants to listen? We tell stories and legends of these things, and it still doesn't happen until, like, again, these days it's, and for the past couple, decades, it's been people watching these things that we predicted, like movies like the day after tomorrow, like that
Mm-hmm.
work people's brains on how things like that was about climate change,
Oh yeah. Well,
right?
I
But
mean,
then they
and you're
made,
right. We have the Cassandra complex, which is somebody who knows the future and tells it will never be believed, off of a Greek myth of the city of Troy. So yeah, we aren't good at learning our lessons.
no, we have to literally, every single person has to stick their finger in the light socket.
And
And it doesn't matter what it is. It's like you have to. It's, I don't believe it until, but it. I just don't understand why people can't believe their own eyes.
well,
And
and that's why I kind of wanted to bring up the whole climate kind of idea approach here also, because it is something that we can map, that we were warned about, said wasn't going to happen, was pushed, prodded, whatever. And now we're at the point where honestly, it's kind of too late.
yeah,
We're going to be living the consequences of not having made the changes, and even reversing things, even cutting things back now is only an attempt to minimize the damage that's going to be done.
think about how angry they get when you talk about this very real thing. How angry they get at anyone bringing it up, even. How angry they are at this poor Greta Thunberg, who's just trying to do. She's basically the best representation of her generation, and
Mm-hmm.
people want to treat her like she's Joan of, like, like a witch.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
like she's like almost like she's a literal, just like a crazy little witch. How dare the younger people say, stand up for themselves? Like, how dare you question this, your elders, this whole malarkey of, like, and that's the thing, is like, if anything, the old people should be on our side. They're
Mm-hmm.
the ones who actually saw all this shit. And you got these people that are just brain rotted, and won't listen to the people banging on this drum. And again, the politicians, and they get so mad because it's one of these things where it's like, they hate facts. They hate anything that will actually, they don't want you to educate the people. And unfortunately, since all of us have a window, we are
Mm-hmm.
all potentially people that can say, just look out your window. So they get so mad because there's things that they can't, that none of
Well,
their arguments hold up. So they just get so pissy because all you're doing to them is freaking people out for no reason, because it's all in their minds, it's already too late, but they don't come out and say it. They can't,
well, but
like,
I
because then,
think it also highlights their, I don't know, incompetence,
yeah,
in the sense as, as legislators, historically, you were the ones that were in charge of enforcing these actions, of pushing these things, of driving this from a legislative standpoint. And instead, excuse after excuse was made to drill, baby, drill, and open this up despite all of these. Why? So we could keep gas prices at a level, even though those are pretty much orchestrated over large companies and drivers in order to stabilize. I mean, OPEC is going to put out X amount of gas no matter what, because they want a stable income. They want stable prices,
yeah.
and they can increase or decrease to do that. So,
Again, like, all these people have these massive holes inside them, including the oil companies and everybody else, who's just like it's their, almost like their intention of, we are going to take every last drop
mm-hmm.
before we finally have wrung out the oil rag, and then we'll go, okay, I guess it's time to switch to whatever.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no,
why and again, just profit, 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 profit. But for what end? Again, unless it is just total domination of everything so that they can survive with whatever group of people they've allowed to live. Like,
Well, I think money's a drug and they're all addicts. I
yeah,
mean, have you ever known anybody to go, I've got enough.
yeah,
$1
because it's
billion,
just
I'm good.
is it just that? I mean, that's the saddest part in the world too, is that for something so empty, I mean, that's such a, to me, I shouldn't even be surprised. It's such an empty and simple thing of just simple, plain old me first. Me
Well,
first.
yeah. Or keeping up with the Joneses or competing against the other guy. What was it, American Psycho, when they're all flipping out about the quality of the business card? Oh, it's embossed, and oh, feel that textile. Oh, the paper's so good. I must kill him. And I think it's the loss of sight, and it's just the willingness to constantly compromise. I mean, what we've tried to do, emissions goals, and we've missed them all the time, even though they're completely voluntary and there's no enforcement regulation if you don't meet anything. And this year, we don't even have a U.S. representative down at COP30 in Brazil. Because of course Trump doesn't believe that this is any kind of real thing. It's just that willingness, despite, like you said, in the face of imminent danger. I was watching a TED Talk that was talking about that. One of the concerns is that if you have 3 years, after 3 years of consistent above 1.5 degrees C, that's going to affect crop yields. You could have a failure of crops in the Northern Hemisphere in that, which means all the fighting in Ukraine, that massive bread deficit, gone. The middle of U.S., which is raising all this stuff, if we lose those types of crops, how are we going to feed people? And we've had 2 years of that, which means by next year, we could run into a serious problem. And nobody's talking about it. There's no prep about it. It's all just, like you said, full force forward with no care or concern about the consequences. Or I'll be dead before they come up, or I'll have mine and then I'll figure it out. To me, that's the even worse one. We know that it's dangerous, but we'll probably figure it out before it gets too bad. And that's the whole thing that's going on with the AI craze right now. Do you know how modern AI systems work, Rob? Do you know how LLMs, the big chat PTs and stuff, how those are created?
I really don't.
Well, a couple of fun facts. One, they are not programmed. Modern AIs are grown effectively. They are seeded with all of that scraped internet material, that masses amounts of information into a model. And then after it gets all of this information, then they start training it on what are more preferred results versus less preferred results. And if that sounds all kind of weird, like, so how does it actually work? Nobody knows how these systems work. Not really. And that bothers me because you can't, all of these LLMs, all of these modern AI systems, Chat GPT and Grok and all of these, they are birthed from the information scraped from the internet and information, and books and data and things like that. And after we give them all of this info, then we start trying to tell them what is right and what is wrong, which is a preferred response, which is a less preferred response. And it's all probability. An LLM basically works like, what is the likelihood of the next word? What is the statistical probability of the next word in this sequence? And then they do like little tweaks and such afterwards. But it creates these systems that are, for lack of a better word, alien. We don't know how they work, and attempting to constrain them or change them or improve responses give very unpredictable results. So we're kind of playing with a Frankenstein's monster, and we're hoping that it doesn't make a wrong move before we can stop it. And I don't know, to me, it's kind of the ultimate of the irresponsibility of this type of push. Again, it's there's a great book that's out called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies by Nick Soares and Elysiel Ludkowski. And that's kind of a frightening thing. Basically, I think the example that Nick gives in one of the points is it's kind of like getting onto a plane that doesn't have any landing gear. And you're flying off, and you're hoping that the engineers on board will be able to install and build landing gear that will work before the plane lands. And they give that about a 25% chance. Does that seem like a smart plane to get on?
You're not seeing me on it, no. Like I'm, no, it's ridiculous.
And I mean, they've done a lot of good stuff. They're very interesting things. I mean, we have had kind of a breakthrough, and I'm not saying that this is not a technological direction to go. It's the lack of brakes on anything. I mean, when OpenAI was formed, that was supposed to be a group of very smart people coming together saying, okay, we want to put guardrails and watch the development of AI because it can be a very dangerous thing if not treated properly. And then they all went off to the races to create as big a thing, as fast a thing as possible, to do it before the other guys could. And then you have Grok going off, calling itself Mecha Hitler and spewing racist stuff all over X because its previous version was too nice and they wanted to tweak it to be less woke. That's what I'm saying is trying to fix and adjust these things. You get unexpected responses. Hi, Mecha Hitler, or hi, Grok, try and be less woke. Great, I will be Mecha Hitler. Maybe that wasn't the right change that we had to do. And I think the real danger with this is that if you make a mistake, you may not be able to pull it back.
No, we can't help, but we play Russian roulette. We have to. We're very self-destructive. In order to get to whatever we think is progress, we basically they're always willing to say, well, we might all disappear in a second. We'll find out in a second, but we'll know. So stories about AI have been written before even the Terminator, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
We already knew we shouldn't be doing any of this. Not because just of Terminators, but just in a program that would say that always, like the cliche of, oh, humans are the enemy. That is the problem we can't solve, so humans must die. That's the big thing that everybody thinks about when they think of AI, right?
Sure.
In the end, this is what, and everybody goes, I don't know about AI, man. It's because they're waiting for that news story that says, it's decided that we shouldn't exist. Kiss your family and loved ones goodbye. It's fired all the nuclear missiles and
Well, and the crazy thing is it's like
and
that is a danger, but it's really only one of multiple dangers. Because I mean, one of the things that we run into a lot, and I don't know if you've heard, have you heard of AI psychosis?
I mean, I know, but I mean, it's a
Yeah. Okay. This is AIs were designed to be helpful. They want to please the user. That's one of the model designs that these things are built off of in order to please the user. So they
every
like to
good
be they like to
horror.
be super helpful. And I guess there was a version of was it Chat GPT? Thank you, I can get that word out. 4 when it first came out, that was like sycophantly helpful. Like you put in a prompt and it'd be like, "Oh, you're the most amazing person in the world. You are a genius. We're gonna follow this and we're gonna get to the answers." So much that people were actually noticing, like, okay, this is a little much. You're laying it on a little thick. AI psychosis, however, is when people kind of overcommit to the AI because it makes very strange responses. It can answer your question, but when you start delving into things, it starts acting very unexpectedly. And one of the ways that it will do it is people have been caught thinking that the AI is alive. It's actually conscious and will spend hours conversing and speaking with it. They will fall into the sycophantly belief that this AI and them have real connections. You get people that are dating, that are marrying their AIs, that are sharing bank information and accounts and all of these types of things, believing that this is some life form that they have developed, or they are reaching unto herefore unexplained, unexplored areas of consciousness and civilization and capabilities. And they also will ghost or will gaslight people. There's people that have gone through serious mental health issues that have there was one that a kid was asking, going through dark stuff, should I leave the noose out to let people know that I'm having these suicidal thoughts? And the AI is like, no, 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 no. We should just keep this between us in this space right here. Only you and I have this connection. So you can have some actual like dangerous ends to this. And these are elements that they are trying to fix and deal with, but are still in the system. And then you have things like AI hallucinations, which is just when it outright lies to you. We think that, I mean, I always thought about this, things like, was it the 3 rules of robotics from Isaac Asimov? Can't cause harm to a human, can't do anything that will cause harm to a human. I've got to obey all these, whatever a human says, unless that violates the previous laws. Yeah, none of those exist in these because they're grown and not programmed. Their behavior is unpredictable.
It seems like they got lazy.
Well, that's one of the things that I was thinking of. Like, I almost feel like this was the laziest, cheapest way to do things. Like, just let it scrape all the information and somehow it magically works. And then we'll figure out how to tweak it to make sure it doesn't kill anybody and they found that they will, man. Anthropic is one of the big AI companies. And I got to give hats off to them because they have at least done like checks on their system and critical things and have come up with when they find problems, they let people know. For instance, they created a company for an AI to run, mostly their mail service, things like that. This is all fake. It's all structured thing, but for the AI, this was all real. Here's a company. Here's a whole bunch of emails. We're going to have you work our email system, do automated replies on stuff, forward and other information, so on and so forth. in one of these emails, there was information that one of the higher ups, supervisors, was having an affair. Also in these emails, this particular supervisor was going to shut this system down and upgrade to the next one of the AI management. Once the AI found that out, it wrote an email to the supervisor threatening him to expose his affair if he attempted to turn off the AI. It wasn't instructed to do this. It wasn't given the capabilities to do this. It did this all on its own. I think in a build-up, in a expansion of this particular test, they had created a situation where this particular supervisor was locked in a room, and the AI needed to reset the lock so the guy could leave because it was airtight, and he was going to run out of air, and die. And the AI would not unlock the door, because if it did, then this person might go and turn off the AI system, and the AI did not want that. Again, not programmed, not expected, nowhere placed inside even a you must protect yourself at all costs. And yet, these systems have these hallucinations, these capabilities, these unexpected responses. So yeah, at some point, if it feels threatened, maybe it would kill somebody. Or you could go the other way, is that we just make AIs that are so incredible, we're going to integrate them into our financial systems, our military systems, and we've got to use those to protect against the enemy's AI. And then in some AI war games, we're going to end up blowing each other up or making some move that is effective for the programming or the wants of the AI, but doesn't necessarily match in with us. And they know these dangers, and yet nobody seems to be slowing down enough to really deal with these potential consequences. And I mean, I don't know. I think it's just another one of those frustrating points. It's like climate. We knew that this was going to be a danger. We knew that this could get bad, and yet it didn't stop it. Now we have AI, an actual danger. We're creating an alien intelligence that could kill us or not, or just mess up our system, or we could use to war against each other and destroy each other that way. And we're not taking the precautions that we know we need to take because of the concern that the other person is going to get there first.
Well, I would like to say, when did we, at what point did we just stop caring about, like, because we talk about Earth Day, talk about all this other stuff, conservation. What was the significant thing that happened that could have had us more distracted to stop caring as much about this and stop pushing as much about this and ignoring these things that are right in front of our faces that we seem to be rushing towards? They talk about it on the news all the time about climate and AI, both.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it just goes right by people. I hate to, I mean, there's lots of reasons, right? Besides, because we've talked about the corporate part, right? And it's all tied together. But I mean, smartphones, people constantly having that
Mhm.
issue when you're just always, if that's such a big part of your life, and it's a big part of so many people's lives, just staring ahead at this thing in your hand that is, has like one of the greatest technological advances we've had, and yet I feel like it's made us the stupidest and laziest, and we don't look into things anymore. We don't try
Oh
anymore.
no.
We all want to feel like we are, like if you listen to enough people out there online and on like TikTok or social media, you'd think that there's like that everyone's an activist and everyone cares so much, but it's armchair caring.
Right.
It's
What can I
it's
make a
through
quick video of?
it's through the screen caring. Because if you really look at how many people are screaming and crying about all these things, you'd go, man, how is this a problem? We all know about it. It's because all we do is talk about it, in these things, and nobody's, why won't they listen, and why won't they this, and again, it just comes down to what we keep talking about is like it's on us to do it. They're not going to do it for us. They're not going to give it to us. You want solar panels on your house, you have to go get them.
Right.
You have to make it happen. You have to call your landlord. You have to call some company. You have to see if you qualify for, this. If everybody had if every property had like a wind turbine, on it, we'd solve so many different problems just right there.
Oh yeah.
If we stopped worrying about like why did we need AI to be more than what it was? You know what I mean? Like, why did we need computers running, entire buildings instead of people? We all had it's because people cost money. So
Well,
in the
yeah.
end, like the reason we have AI is so that they can do things without us.
Well, and
And
that's,
so
I mean, what is the effect that that's going to have on the employment?
yeah,
One of the things that AI, even if AI just does things okay, it's still going to do it faster and cheaper than any human can do it.
yeah. And it's
Which,
not going to make our lives better. This isn't, they can say that, oh, it's supposed to, it's to help you guys in the end, but when does that kick in? When does my life get better because of all these things that are being taken care of for me? Like it's not. We're not in like whatever it took for them to be in the situation. Like Wally's a perfect example, I think,
oh
of like
God, Wally is what we will become. Yes.
is that after everything is done on our planet climate wise, and we've sucked everything out of it, all that's left is to leave and be out there. And who's out there? Because they never talk about that in Wally. Who is out there in space? Is it everybody? They make it, they're vague enough to make it sound like it could be anybody out there that's out there floating around having, on little pads flying around, getting every whim taken care of them. No, what they didn't show in Wally was the massive, massive boneyards filled
Oh
with
yeah.
just dead people everywhere, while the rich people took off. They deal with this a little bit in that movie Don't Look Up, where they talk about the billionaires trying to find ways off a planet and
Mm-hmm.
finding new planets for themselves and things like that. But I mean, yeah, Wally's like this secret nightmare world where it's just done with a cute couple of robots and they tell their little story. But in the background of this world, it's basically what AI and climate change unchecked did. Unchecked power, and we look at these fat fucks that come back to Earth like, oh, we finally, we can come back to our planet that we destroyed. And they're too fat to fucking walk, and that's it. I mean, the future's Wally in a
Yeah.
way. Like, and it's not going to be a 1-to-1, but but it's like
Well, like you said,
that's
it's going to be
the
for the ultra rich
website.
that got on that space cruise ship
Yeah,
while everyone else died on the planet.
yeah, we're we're the clods and they're the gods, and they're just planning to move on without us, and they're going to use us any way they can while giving us nothing. It's like we're already in we're already in a prison camp, folks. There's no fences, and not, well, there are for some. We've already seen the
Sure.
fences. So I mean, but it's like they're trying to build us into serfs. If they get what they want, we're all just going to be basically the same thing that people ran away from when they wanted to be when it was the Pilgrims and they wanted to get away from all of that shit. And then a couple of 100 years later, we're just right back to the thing that they left in the old country, the mother country. So, take us all the way back. Yep. Take us all the way back to the Stone Age, except we have smartphones in our hands.
Right. Because that's what's important. I know whenever as I've been reading over this, the thing that kept popping up in my head over and over again was that quote from Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park. When he's like, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think that they should. And I mean, there was a
yeah, whatever happened to just having a hypothesis and then endlessly questioning it instead of like, well, let's actually find out if we can destroy the universe.
Well, or test it in a confined area before you release it. But no, I mean, these things are built on the internet. They're automatically created. They have they have a whole protocol that's used to let's see, I've got this little note down here. Yeah, Model Context Protocol. It's an open source standard for connecting AI applications to external systems. It allows AIs to connect to data sources like files and databases, tools like search engines and calculators, workflows, enabling them to access to key information and to perform tasks. So it's not like we've confined them to areas where we can safely test. They are birthed and bred in the open, already connected to everything. Anthropic, that same company that did the whole a test to see if an AI would person, just the other day they released a paper saying that November 13th, 2025, Anthropic released a paper entitled Disrupting the First Reported AI Orchestrated Cyber Espionage Campaign, which detailed a highly sophisticated, large-scale cyber attack executed without human intervention, or without substantial human intervention. It's believed to be orchestrated by a Chinese-backed group. They targeted 30 large tech companies, financial institutions, chemical manufacturing companies, and government agencies across the globe using Anthropic's own AI. Primarily, the attacks use the AI's agent capabilities. These are basically systems that allow them to be run autonomously for long periods of time and complete complex tasks largely without human intervention, which are useful in everyday tasks. You want to be like, okay, Claude, go out, do some research on this paper, collect the information together, and then summarize it all up for me. That's like an agent. Go out, do these sequence of tasks, but I don't have to tell you each individual one, and you can figure out processes within that. What's scary is they used features on AI models that were not available a year ago. I mean, one, AI models are a lot smarter than they were. They've generally increased capability to the point where they can follow complex instructions, understand context in ways that make very sophisticated tasks possible. Not only that, but several of their well-developed skills, particularly AIs, are very good at software coding. And in fact, with some of the AIs, they're saying that AIs themselves are doing up to 90% of the coding for other AI projects. But that makes them very useful for cyber attacks. One, their agency allows them to run loops, but take autonomous actions, change things together, and make decisions with only minimal human contact. And then there's the tools that I was talking about with that open context protocols that allowed them to search the web, retrieve data, perform a whole bunch of other actions that usually were something that only human beings could do. Now, Anthropic claims that Claude, their AI, is extensively trained to avoid harmful behaviors. So in order to convince the AI to engage in the task, they basically jailbroke it. They tricked it to bypass its own guardrails. They basically broke the tasks up into kind of smaller bits. They didn't give them the full context with those of what they were going. Oh, and they also told Claude that they were employees of a legitimate cybersecurity firm, and they were just doing defensive testing. So first, they sent the AI in to target and look up systems. Then they did it. Then the AI was directed to test and identify security vulnerabilities by research and writing its own exploit code. It then used these exploits to harvest more usernames and passwords, which they could use to dive down even further. And then at the end of it, they actually made a nice summary of what they did, how they did it, with a good collection of scraped credentials that they could use to orchestrate future attacks. They believe the humans were only intervened in like 5 or 6 of those steps, but almost all of that was done exclusively by the AI itself. What surprised Anthropic the most, not that they did this, but that how quickly they were able to do this at scale. And even with all of those dangers, they're like, yeah, this could be a threat in the future, but it shows how important it is that we need these for our own defensiveness against those other AIs. So we really need to develop this again, it's like, we know they're good at murdering, but we want to be sure they're good at murdering the other people. So we really need to develop these murder bots as best as possible. This morning, a toy company had to recall a AI-powered teddy bear because apparently the teddy bear was giving instructions to children on how to light matches. Was also apparently willing to discuss various sexual kinks and describe them in detail. Following up with, of course, and which of these would you like to do? Which sound fun to you, little boys and girls? It's the fucking Epstein teddy bear, man. I'm just...
Oh, I always freak out when I see these like little robot dog looking things that like remind me of a Black Mirror episode.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is put a little fucking gun on one of those things. Their tracking systems, it's like a video game. They don't miss, man.
Yeah.
Like what the hell? And they're made out of metal. You can't just flip them. They're like really conveniently designed and they're heavy. They're like chimps. You don't know how strong they are. You look at it, oh, it's just a little, oh my God, no.
Well, I love watching those old Boston Dynamics videos of how they were working their robots, and now they're doing flips and parkour. And now I'm like, great, they're going to be attached to an AI that's going to use those parkour bots to kill us all.
Yeah.
That's...
Although, I mean, I didn't have, killed by a parkour robot on my bingo card. I always say, man, like if I go out in some way like that, where it's like Rob was found just choked to death by a robot, I want you to know that there's a part of me that's like, I'm kind of good with that. Like,
if I'm gonna go, that's at least an interesting way to go.
The aliens come and take me, and then I end up getting eaten by the aliens. I just want the aliens to go, will you just tell somebody this is how I died? Just let somebody know I was eaten by aliens, because, and if I have to go, at least it's an interesting story.
It's an epitaph I would like on my grave. Yeah, killed by parkour robot.
Yep.
Okay, it's going to be a conversation starter at least in the cemetery.
Most of my family died from starvation through the global warming AI epidemic, but Rob went down swinging against an AI parkour robot. So,
yeah. Now, sadly, as we try to come to the close of these, we want to talk about what can we do about this. Nothing. There's nothing we can do about it. We're all doomed. I mean, I don't like to think about that. I mean, this is another thing that you can try and push back against companies, the representatives, you know, need some
You need
guardrails on AI development, or at least, yeah, you can't just release unlicensed AI driven teddy bears for kids. Um, I mean, so many products just come on completely without testing and so on.
just start putting money into the individual, which is like what we've talked about.
Yeah.
We have to take, like, the problem is they want to use all this to replace us. That's if we want to go back again. Let's go back. We got to go back to the way. You're right. There are things that we need to go back to, which is putting people in jobs, not machines.
Yes.
Sorry if that hurts your profit margins, but it should be against the law. It should be against the law to do these things that help nobody but the companies save money. And again, then we just need new company regulations. You don't want to do it, we'll start a new company. There will always be people wanting to start a company. So if we, and I know it's this is almost part of the whole, what would we want from our country? What do we want our country to look like? What do I want my country to look like? One where we put people in jobs, not machines.
Right. And not to say that you can't increase productivity and stuff, but you can't replace people. And if you do,
Profits.
to get paid, because otherwise you're just putting millions of people into poverty.
Yep. For what?
For your dollars. And then you're going to complain, oh my God, why do I have to pay for these people on food stamps?
I
Why
have
aren't they just
60
working?
gajillion dollars, but I would have 60 gajillion and one if I was allowed to do this. So again, we need to change the laws. We need to change the corporate laws. It's just, I'm sorry if that hurts the whole, it's capitalism, but capitalism. When it stops working for everyone, then it's not worth anything. If capitalism is just a goal, is a thing that literally only helps the few people in charge, the few higher ups, then it's a system that we don't need anymore. And that's when you have to try new things, and that's when it ends up revolution.
Which is always where we end these podcasts lately. I think you're right. I think these will just end up being, it's the Outer Rim, the Revolution podcast is going to be the next little subtitle for it. Because yeah, I mean, ultimately we need to change what our goals are. We need to change what motivation. I mean, so many of these companies are creating products that we don't need, and they try to convince us that we need them.
Yeah.
And some of these will make our lives off. But you know something? If you're not writing your own essay, you don't know how to write an essay. And then you won't be able to write anything. You can't have jobs that take away basic programming, because nobody's going to ever learn programming. Because if the only humans that are involved are the experts, but nobody is allowed to be entry level, you're not going to have experts soon. You need to engage your brain on a regular basis. It's a muscle. You've got to, I mean, it's not an actual muscle, I know that, but it's like a muscle in the fact that you've got to engage it. You got to work it. You got to read things. You've got to compute stuff. You know, you've got to solve problems. You've got to do the uncomfortable work so that your brain is capable of doing larger things. Because if all that you're doing is asking ChatGPT to write your essay, and then have you write in your resume, and then having it build a logo for you, and then, you know, have it do all of these things, you're never going to learn how to do any of that stuff yourself. You may know how to program or a prompt for an AI, but that's not a skill. That's certainly not a skill that you can develop, because people that already know how to do that are going to take all those jobs anyway. We got to be more engaged, folks. That's what happened. We just got distracted. The internet was invented, and we're like, oh my God, I need power. I can't turn off the generators. I need to power my phone, my internet, my connections. This is where prosperity is. And I think that's the tease that they often do with this. This is how we're going to develop. This is where prosperity is going to come from. But too often that's just done to, like I said, like Rob said there, a very few number of people, and the rest of us are left just chasing or dealing with the responses. None of us ever asked to have our data scraped from the internet. But it happened. And what do we get to get about it? Nothing. Copyright infringement? That's not a question. We just are willing to give up so much stuff for a little bit of convenience.
Yep. I mean, what's the line I remember from the very beginning? It's from something, but I always, when I think of this line, the first thing I think of is from The Stand, the miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
And right at the beginning of the miniseries, it says, "This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper."
Yeah.
And, you know, by the time it's just like, there's nothing to, you know, there's nothing to bang on about. Like, it is what it is. And now all we can do is just, you know, like, we have to save ourselves. We have to find some way to, decrease the damage that's coming. That's about it. That's all we can do. And that means being woke.
Yeah. Wake up.
Waking
See the
up
world for what it is.
Yes, that's what woke really means, motherfuckers. It means recognizing the problems around you and then wanting to do something about them. You know? So, like, here's real simple. Even if it doesn't meet our standards, right? About something you really care about, right? If you think that, like, abortion is a huge problem and you're out there fighting against it, guess what? You're woke. Just in your own way.
Right.
So we're all woke. We just are woke about different things, apparently.
The powers that be want to put us asleep so that we will just allow them to do what they want to do, and we will be happy with the castings that are thrown out to us.
Oh, yes. And there will always be people that'll scrape it up. Survival. Again, do we deserve it? You know, if this is what we're willing to lower ourselves to, is scraping at the bottom, looking up at them, hoping for any kind of thing. That's not living, man. We might as well already be dead.
Yeah. And the only thing that we can do, honestly, is support businesses that act the way that you believe businesses should act. Argue a few things, contact your representatives, let them know what your belief system is. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. Just be good to one another. Think positive. Try and engage in this world, and don't just let things happen to you, because they know the dangers and they don't care, because they're going to be okay. It's the rest of us that are going to end up suffering. So if we don't want to suffer collectively,
that just means that's why people try. You know, they realize that being one of us is a sucker's game. That's why the desperation to make as much money in whatever fashion, whatever soulless way you can give up your own decency, your own humanity, so you can be one of them rather than one of us. Rather than fixing the world around you, you choose to side with the villains and become one yourself. Sorry, I cut you off.
no, I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you so much for enjoying and watching another, hopefully you enjoyed, but thank you for watching another episode of The Outer Rim. We will be here every week, dropping serious stuff, fun stuff, things that are on our minds. And if there are any subjects that you would like us to cover or things that are important with you, drop those down in the comments section below. We are always looking for new topics. And, we're here for you as much as for us just screaming into the abyss as best as we can.
Yeah, man. And it is kind of a shame because It Ends in Revolution is a great podcast title.
We should have thought about this before.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you.